On today's show, I am joined by Chuck and Brad from the Chuck and Brad podcast, and they're going to be discussing their live comedy show, a retelling of Jurassic Park, on Thursday, June 21st at the Comedy Connection in East Providence, Rhode Island. So join us, will you, on episode 2 of Geek Speak with Chuck and Brad.
By the power of Grayskull! Autobots, roll out.
Torpid time! You have failed this city.
Winter is coming.
Star-Lord.
Finish him! Hadouken! Fatality.
And welcome to episode 2 of Geek Speak. I am your host, Jay Free, and my two guests today have a show coming up that they want to tell you about, but I'll let them bring all that to the table. So, gentlemen, please introduce yourselves.
I am Chuck Staten from the Chuck and Brad podcast.
My name is Brad Rohr. I am also from the Chuck and Brad podcast.
The Chuck and Brad podcast?
That's right. I know it sounds unimaginative in terms of a name, but we used to have the name Agreeing to Disagree, the Chuck and Brad podcast, because we're different people. But then no one ever said it. Everyone always said Chuck and Brad, the Chuck and Brad podcast, Chuck and Brad's podcast. So we're like, let's just call it the Chuck and Brad podcast. Is what people call it.
And usually within podcasts, they have the guests plug the stuff at the end. I'm going to have you guys plug up front, and then on the back end.
You got to do like 7 plugs nowadays.
Yeah,
you got to do one up front, one at the end, 5 in the middle, one halfway between.
Yeah,
keep going.
We'll take a break. We'll do some stuff. It'll be great.
So what we're plugging is Brad and I.
Yeah, sorry. Thursday, June 21st.
Let's not start there. Come on. What are we doing here?
Well, I'm going to say it again. Thursday, June 21st.
Okay.
7 times.
So Brad and I, we're podcasters, but we're also comedians. We do live stand-up comedy, as opposed to what? Pre-tape stand-up comedy?
No,
I don't know why I said live.
YouTube
as opposed
comedy,
to live stand-up pathos.
Yes. No, we do stand-up comedy, but we also have done like live podcast episodes in the past. And in the past year or so, we've kind of bridged our live podcast with our stand-up. And so now we just do these live shows that are just live comedy shows with like prepared bits. And so what we're doing is on Thursday, June 21st, at the Comedy Connection in East Providence, we're going to do a live reimagining of the classic film Jurassic Park. It's the day before Jurassic World 2 comes out, which is why we're doing it on that day. But we're going to headline the Comedy Connection. I mean, we're going to open the show, do a little stuff up front, bring on some of our favorite stand-up comedians. We got Andrew Williams, Penny Oswin, Rob Green, and Ray Harrington, also known as the Living Fish Fillet.
He loves
and
that
he will have new Living Fish Fillet jerseys at the show, $180 each. Good luck, Ray, man. I told you it wasn't a great investment. But also copyright infringement. Let's just say that.
Are they basketball jerseys? Are they baseball jerseys?
He has a jersey for every sport.
Wow.
You only had enough money to afford one. So if you need a triple XL, baseball, hockey, badminton, Ray Harrington. All those people are opening. And then we're closing the show. We're headlining with our retelling of Jurassic Park live on stage.
So let's kind of set the stage without giving anything away, because we want people to come to the show. But let's talk about this retelling.
Right.
Like what does it entail? Just give us like a synopsis, like the
It's
setup.
curious, right? Here's my question to you, as the outsider who doesn't know.
Yes.
If you saw live reimagining of Jurassic Park, are you like intrigued?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm curious. Like, is it going to be like idea of how Jurassic Park first was created, or is it going to be like, hey, this is when the movie starts, and we're going to just retell it from our perspective?
Well, basically, this is the deal. So a long time ago, Brad was graced by God, maybe cursed by Satan, with the inability to draw well.
He
draws really poorly.
That's true.
And I fell in love with those drawings. I realized that there was nothing else. It's like if you took everything you love, and you're like, you love food for this reason, you love sex for this reason, you love this for this reason, all these different things. So many different loves. Brad's drawings was a new love, which I never felt that way about anything else.
Yeah, he stopped loving sex because of
that.
that.
I stopped there, gave up sex for Brad's drawings.
He just took the drawings?
Yeah, instead. And I was like, these drawings are they're so hilariously bad. Have you seen the movie The Room with Tommy Wiseau?
I have not. But
Okay, well, the idea of that, the appeal of that is the same as the appeal of Brad's drawings.
My drawings are a midnight movie.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau to Steven Spielberg is Brad to Pablo Picasso.
It's Brad to like a moderately talented fourth grader.
Yeah, so he draws these terrible things. So what we do for our live retellings or reimaginings, whatever you want to call them, because we did the Avengers as well, and we did How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Brad draws every scene in the movie, and then I take his terrible drawings, and me, being Brad's possibly more obscene friend, I write a whole new narration, possibly, a whole new narration for the movie based on his drawings and what they look like to me. And then Brad has to read that narration live on stage.
That's amazing.
Right?
That sounds fantastic.
Oh, and it's funny too because, we did it. This started as a private thing that we did it at like Christmas. Like we have these big Christmases with like 12 people. And a couple years ago, for my girlfriend, her favorite movie is The Lion King. And so I was like, oh, what if you redrew The Lion King? And I wrote a narration that you read for the first time at Christmas. And we did it. Very fun, but it's all, it's between our friends. So obviously there's inside jokes and stuff. We did it again the following year with Toy Story.
Yep.
And we did it privately with How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And we headlined the Comedy Connection for a Christmas show in December. And I was like, maybe we should do our Grinch retelling live. And Brad, you were kind of against it.
I was, because I'm embarrassed about my drawings. Like,
Was it because of that, or were you not sure that it would go over well?
I wasn't sure it would translate to a non-friend audience.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, and obviously in that one especially, there's not really any inside jokes or anything. It's just you really have to win someone over to, I guess, really get behind the idea of feeling sympathetic for Brad, but also willing to laugh at the drawings and stuff like that. Yeah. And we didn't know if it would work, but we ended up doing it at the live show and taking the risk to see if it would work. And it brought the house down.
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah, the Grinch one brought the house down.
And it was timely again. It was a Christmas show.
Right. Exactly.
And it just like Kismet, everything kind of lined up.
Exactly.
And that's perfect. And now you mentioned the Avengers.
We just did the Avengers right before Avengers Infinity War came out.
Yep.
We did that at the Comedy Connection, headlined. And we also went to Big Apple Comic Con in New York, and we got booked to perform it twice there. I think that went really well too. And I think it makes sense for any big franchise with like a classic story. I think it makes sense to do this kind of thing. If you're talking about something like, not that we're going to do Toy Story. Maybe we could do Toy Story.
We probably
But
could.
when Toy Story 4 comes out, why not go do Toy Story at the Comedy Connection and have us do it?
That'd be amazing.
And I think that it's such a cool thing because it's hard to stand out as comedians, and it's hard to get people out to shows, especially if they don't know you yet. So the idea of saying, well, let's take a hook into current pop culture, stuff that's already being promoted, and say, hey, this is your way to get locked into this and to get into this further, but with local artists and their take on it in a fun way. And I think that it really makes a lot of sense. Avengers went really well. I'm hoping Jurassic Park has a really good attendance as well on June 21st, Thursday at Comedy Connection. And it's a really, really fun thing. I think people can definitely walk in without having any idea about who we are and be like doubled over laughing.
And I'll, as weird as it sounds, I think people could have not seen Jurassic Park, see our retelling of it, and not feel lost. Because so much of the joy comes from the fact that dinosaurs are really hard to draw, you guys.
yeah, they certainly are.
That's gonna kind of be the quote of the podcast. Dinosaurs are really hard to draw. That should be your tagline.
That's on the poster with Brad giving the shrug, and it says that below.
I love that. That's great. No, and I think conceptually, I mean, like the idea of that, it's different from a lot of, you talk about comedy, like when people like the lay person thinks of comedy, they think of like a Jerry Seinfeld standing up there just talking about it. You guys bring a visual element into it, and you get to see your comedy stylings as well, which I think is a really cool concept.
Yeah.
So again, Thursday, June 21st.
Nice.
I'm going to plug it too. You get that in my brain.
Yes.
Let's just, before we continue on, I want to hear about your backstories, how you guys met. Just your different interests and kind of the whole turn to comedy. Why you think comedy is such an outlet for both of you. Let's kind of just take a step back real quick, and where can the listeners of this, or if you're watching this on Facebook Live, it's pre-recorded, but thank you. Where can they get tickets?
I mean, if you go to chuckandbradpodcast.com, all the event info is there. Hopefully the ticket link will be up by the time this comes out. It definitely has the Facebook page, the Facebook event page. The Comedy Connection is kind of in charge of their ticket link on their website, which is it ricomedyconnection.com?
I think so.
And if the tickets aren't available, It won't sell out, so if you want to show up the night of June 21st, you can buy tickets there, but definitely buy pre-sale tickets because we do get the texts leading up to the show that are like, hey, you only sold this many pre-sale tickets, hey. And everything has worked out so well. It worked out well so far. This is our 4th time headlining at the Comedy Connection.
Yeah.
All the shows have gone well. But yeah, chuckandbradpodcast.com is where to find out all the show info. It's right in the main page. I made a flyer that I'm very proud of.
It looks great.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's based on the old VHS version of Jurassic Park. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
And before we go on, I want to say that for the Chuck and Brad podcast, that link will be on. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, the link will be there to their page, so you can link back right to there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, check the description. The link will be in there as well. So I just want to put that out there.
Perfect. Absolutely. That's great.
So
my comedy journey.
Yeah,
I usually tell this story, so why don't you tell the story?
Oh, so we're going to see it from the other perspective.
Yeah,
it's weird because we had different backgrounds before we met. This is going way back.
Yeah.
When I went into 4th grade, I went from my normal school to the gifted and talented program that was at another school, and so I went from being like the one smart guy. And I had to kind of establish a new identity. So I'm like, I want to be the funny one. I want to be just like Fozzie Bear.
Hey, you told me that before.
Great aspiration.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that kind of became my identity. And then I realized I wasn't smarter than the people in my class. I was better at school than a lot of the other people in that gifted class, which is not the same thing. And for a long time, I assumed it was. And Let's not say bad things about me. So then, went through middle school and high school, and in the smart classes, I was one of the funny ones, and I really enjoyed it because of the way my schedule worked out. I was able to watch a lot of Whose Line Is It Anyway, like the British version.
Okay.
When I got home from school, and I was like, oh man, improv is great. And that was kind of all I knew about it. Went to college.
Little known fact, Whose Line Is It Anyway? The British version is called Whose Lift Is It Anyway?
Yes, that's correct. Lift is British for line. It's not true.
You're lying. You're lying.
So I went to college. Second City came.
Sorry, whose flat is it anyway?
Yes. Whose lorry is it anyway?
Yeah.
Whose boot is it anyway?
Yes. Went to college, and Second City, the Second City touring company, came and did a show. I went to Bradley University. Did a show during my freshman year, and I was like, oh, that was so good. They had an amazing Pictionary sketch. They did some improv, and I talked to them a little bit afterwards, but just a very little bit. And then next year, Second City Tour Co. came around again, and it was a different group of people, and I actually got to go out afterwards and hang out and talk with them. And they said, take improv classes, take them in Chicago if do Second City or Improv Olympic. And I ended up at Improv Olympic and took some classes and really enjoyed it. Tried to start an improv group at Bradley and just didn't follow through with it. I had a table at the activity fair at the beginning of the year and didn't even sit at it. So because I was like, I don't know how to teach improv. I
didn't know you tried to start an improv group, and you didn't even sit at your table?
Yeah, at that point I had 8 classes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm qualified to start a group. They were like, you need an advisor. I'm like, I don't know any theater professors, none.
Wow.
So I didn't
know that.
I didn't do anything with that. I took classes again the following summer, then graduated college, took more classes, finished the classes, and they're like, all right, now we'll put up on the website who made it from classes to actual teams, and we'll perform at Improv Olympic. And I was not on the list.
Ooh.
And I was really sad. I took another class. I retook level 5, and I didn't get put on a team again. And I found out on Halloween night. And I was working at Walgreens at the time, and our job Halloween night is to work overnight and take down all the Halloween stuff and set up all the Christmas stuff for no reason. So I found out at 9:30 p.m. and I had to be at work at 10, and I was just crying all over the place. I was 24 years old, and went to work and didn't talk to anyone for the first 5 hours I was there because it was just me and another guy working, and we just worked in silence until 3:30 in the morning when he's like, "Can I take a lunch?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So really kind of, that drove me away from improv for a couple years. Went on grad school interviews, and one of the questions was oh, what do you do in your free time? I said, improv comedy, because it sets me apart, makes me seem like I can think on my feet. And fortunately, nobody called my bluff about are you good at it? Which I would not have been able to say yes to. Same thing on job interviews. I got a job at UMass Dartmouth in 2006. And our women's center director, has a theater degree, and she said, "Oh, there's an improv group in Newport that is having auditions." This was in July of 2007. She said, "We should audition together." And I said, "Okay." And then she bailed on the audition the day of, and I went. and was like, okay, that year of experience in Chicago, like, let's call it 4 years previous, paid off. I kind of knew a little bit. We were doing short form improv instead of long form improv. I had a little more confidence in myself as a person, and was able to translate that to the stage. Meanwhile, Chuck is growing up here in Rhode Island.
True.
Funny one, class clown, cut up, like in high school. In high
I'm
school,
going to say this. There was like voting for class clown in my high school as seniors. I lost to Kevin Silva, the bassist of Senior Discount, my band, the original bassist,
right.
long dead to my heart.
Yes.
And that really pissed me off. And I still stand by the fact that if they had taken the voting at the end of the year as opposed to the beginning of the year, I would have won.
Nice.
Stupid idiot goddamn yearbook publishers are always like, the yearbook comes out in May. We have to have this thing finished in November. I'm like, you fucking idiots. Anyway, so...
By the way, I was voted most likely to be president.
Really?
In my senior class, yeah.
Ew.
Our voting was in like April.
Did they know what the presidential scene was going to look like in 2018, and that's why?
They knew what it looked like. They knew what it looked like in 1996.
Oh, that's true. We need someone who hates blowjobs.
Well, hello.
Dry as a bone.
And this is what you can expect on Thursday,
June 21st.
June 21st.
Yeah. So, I was in high school, and I had a lot of fun. I ran across lunchroom tables and got in a lot of trouble and did a lot of things that, I got in a lot of trouble. But, right after high school, I guess during high school, I was doing a lot of comedy videos, really short ones. There was a whole series called, that started with The Day Everyone Fought, and there was The Night Everyone Fought, The Day Everyone Fought Again. There was a lot of stuff. And just dumb, when you're a kid, when you have your parents, like, Super 8 camera. I guess for people who are as old as us, now it's just kids with cell phones.
Yeah.
But just making home movies and stuff when it was way less popular to do it than it is now because it was harder, more expensive. So I was doing that, went to high school, and right after high school, like right afterwards, I wanted to start a band with my friends. None of us played, well, I shouldn't say none of us, but me, myself, and my drummer, Christian, my cousin, didn't play instruments. So we just basically said, yeah, we're a band today. Then we went out and bought instruments. Then we practiced for like 2 years, and we practiced a lot. Sometimes we practiced 5 days a week. And after a while, we started playing in a band called Senior Discount. We're like a punk band, but like mainstream punk rock, like Green Day or Blink-182. And things went really well pretty quickly. And a lot of it was our personality, I think. I think we really take after bands like NoFX and Blink-182 in terms of having a funny persona on stage. And right away, we got into making like online videos to promote ourselves. And it's so common now, but this was actually pre like YouTube popularity because we started doing this in 2004 and YouTube didn't really get super popular. Well, super popular way later, but their first tick of popularity was like 2005. And we would just do these videos that would be like promoting our shows, promoting our albums. And as time went on, it was interesting because the band progressed. I went to film school. I went to school for film. And the videos got more and more serious, where we would make them. At first, they were just quick little things we shot. Then eventually, we were using boom mics and lighting, and we had multiple storylines. And at some point in time, let's call it 2008. Is that what you think? When I saw you first,
It was 2007.
Was it 2007?
Yeah, late 2007.
Okay, so I saw Brad performing improv with my bassist at the time. And I was like, oh, this guy is so funny. And we had a reputation, like, for being fucking real obscene. Like, I had gotten arrested by that point in time for one of the things that we filmed. We did a lot of big pranks. People were scared to spend time with us, like other bands. Like, we had this house actually close to where we're recording now. We're recording in my house in Warren, a couple streets down. At 20 years old, we had 4 of us in this house. And there were a lot of fights there. My head got put through a screen. But we were filming this stuff, all this stuff, and so we had this very raucous videos combined with this very raucous stage show. So we did have a reputation of almost like, I think a lot of people were like, oh yeah, we should stay away from those guys. Like a little bit. Not like we're going to hurt someone, but just like...
You had a reputation.
We're going to prank people. We're going to, something wild might happen.
You're going to get pantsed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Jackass guys.
Yeah.
It's the idea of the trepidation of hanging out with the Jackass guys in the set of the Jackass movies. That's how it would be. We even did a big movie called it was called VBW Attack, the Senior Discount movie. Sold out a huge premiere in Province Place Mall by this time. with like all of our biggest pranks and biggest stunts that we had ever done. And I saw Brad on stage, and you could tell from the way his eyes look, his forehead, his mouth, his slow moving nature, that he's the opposite of that guy.
Yes.
He's the guy who's like, oh my God, he's nervous about things.
I am.
And I was like, we got to get this guy involved as like the antithesis to Senior Discount, because we obviously had this like fictionalized kind of version of us in these videos. It's interesting because we had the prank and stunt videos, which were completely real and all that stuff. But then we also had videos that had like a storyline that were obviously kind of fictionalized, like Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David. And I was like, oh, let's bring Brad in. Talked to Brad right away. He was on board right away and got it. He came up with the idea of the Rhode Island League of Decency and how he would be the head of the League of Decency trying to shut us down, and that was going to be the immediate...
The straight man to all your zany antics.
Exactly. And right away we started doing that. And then after a little bit, I was like, man, I really want to update my band's website. And Brad had been doing a blog. I had been doing a blog. Brad had already brought up the idea of a podcast. I was like, let's just do a podcast every week. We'll put it on the Senior Discount site, and that way people who are in the area can come back and check out what we're doing, whether it's practices or shows coming up, whatever. They can come check it out because we'll be talking about whatever current thing. If we say at the beginning of the episode, we give updates about Brad's improv group, we give updates about my band, then we talk about the new Halloween movie, whatever we want. And so we did. And that's kind of how this started.
Yeah.
And that was 2009 in January.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because our first episode was like our favorite things from 2008. So it's like, oh, Lost is such a good show.
Yeah.
Agreed, first of all.
So that we did the podcast, and
then the podcast, led to the live podcasts, and us talking about like, all right, well, what else can we do with comedy? And so we're like, let's do stand up, and then let's combine these things, and
we continued with film production that whole time.
Yeah.
We still do film production. We did the most recent scripted films from us in December, so not long ago, 7 months ago. That are some of my favorite ones we've ever done. And, now I work with the guys from Comic Book Men and Impractical Jokers. They have a podcast called Tell 'em Steve Dave. I just released a new video with them, 2 weeks ago, called Elephants in the Room, which is a game show that was shot in Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash that I've been working on in secret for 9 months. But that came from us filming our live podcast with like a multi-camera crew and me directing it and editing it, and reaching out to them, me directing a live shoot at the Gramercy Theater in New York when they did their live show. Brad was one of the camera people. My girlfriend Gina was one of the camera people, and doing that Blu-ray with them. And now I've continued to work with them. So we still do live, we still do film comedy stuff, and now we've kind of graduated to doing more live stuff as well in conjunction with the podcast.
Yeah.
And that's a good summary, right?
Yeah.
And there's a 15-minute summary is always nice and nice and succinct.
It's like the elevator pitch of
Yeah, except it's a very slow, like the elevator broke down between floors.
Right. Yeah, floor 1 to 199.
The executive we're pitching it to is like trying beyond belief.
Yeah.
I want to kind of circle back because you did talk about, I want to just pick apart a couple different things.
Please.
You mentioned the British Who's Line.
Yes.
So favorite improv comedian on that show?
What was his last name? Was it was it Tony? There was a guy with black hair. It wasn't Colin Mockery. It wasn't Ryan Stiles. There was the woman whose name may have been Josie.
Yep, Josie. Yep.
Yeah. In my mind, it's Tony.
Curveball.
Yeah, wasn't expecting that.
No, because that was kind of my first I'd always like funny movies, but like my first improv experience was watching. Some of those Who's Line.
Yeah.
Like you can always tell improv, but like when I could see that it would become a career to do that, I was like, okay, this is great. And then obviously the Drew Carey American version
I was
fantastic.
so psyched when that came around, and because it let more people see improv. But then everyone expected me to do that kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh no, we do long form improv. We take one suggestion and do between 30 and 40 minutes worth of scenes.
And that's what I was going to. You said long form.
Yeah.
And I just clarify that for the listening audience. It's not like, hey, we're going to do a 5-minute skit with like a suggestion. We're gonna
and at the Providence Improv Guild where I currently perform weekly, we have long form shows Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then once a month they'll do a short form night. Usually on a Thursday. It's maybe, I don't know if it's the last Thursday of the month or the second, whatever. And they'll get a group together called Newspaper Podcast, and it's kind of just all our veteran people. And it's like, hey, if you're free and can do this, Like, here are the games we're playing tonight. Who's going to play what game? Okay, this is what we're doing. And so, it is nice to do that short form stuff every once in a while. We did it with there was a group from India, like the country India, called Punch Tantra, and they were doing an American tour of their radical mime experience. Because mime doesn't need language.
Wow.
So they came to us, and I think they did a mime show like Friday night, and then Saturday night they're like, we want to do short form improv with you guys. And so, there's a language barrier, and also they don't do short form improv. I'll say that show was a challenge, but like a fun challenge, and there were like 150 people in the room seeing us, do this stuff, and it was like fun and good and exciting. So, it is nice to do that short form every once in a while, but we do long form more than anything at PIG, Providence Improv Guild.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. And I just want to talk to you too. You mentioned Tell 'em Steve Dave.
Yeah.
Years ago, I ended up going to Red Bank, New Jersey for work, and I swung by Jay and Bob's Secret Stash, and it was right after Comic Book Men started.
Wow.
So it's like, it was like probably third or fourth episode in, and I'm there with a buddy of mine, a coworker, and we're looking around, and it's just like a typical comic book shop. So, it's
right.
like, but you see it, it's kind of like reality versus expectation.
Yeah.
And you figure everybody's going to be like bringing in stuff to get it appraised. Like it's totally empty. So I ended up going up, and Walt happened to be working the counter. I said, "Hey man, did you ever happen like with the show picking up? Do you guys notice you get more people in here with like fans of the show, or do you see business changing?" And he basically looked at me, and he looked around. He says, "Do you fucking see anybody else here?" And I was like,
Walt for you.
touche. Like, and that's it was just a great experience. Like,
that's so funny.
I've met those guys a couple of times. I have another friend of mine who's actually pretty good friends with Ming Chen.
Yeah.
She hangs out with him and whatnot. So she's in LA right now.
That's cool.
But she's really cool. But yeah, like that. I just, when you said that and the Tell 'em Steve Dave, like that's cool. And like the idea that you guys can kind of mesh from what you were doing from the video standpoint and whatnot, and then kind of bringing in you from the comedy stand, like it feels like, and to be honest, I've only met you guys like 25 minutes ago, but like just like the back and forth, like the partnership, for lack of a better term, that you guys have. Like you said, it is the antithesis. You guys kind of balance each other out in a certain way, and I think that's really, really cool. So I'm very, very excited to see what you guys do on Thursday, June 21st.
Yeah, there you go.
Good.
That's what I like.
I'm gonna keep plugging.
No, please do. That's great.
It's weird. You're like, oh, Brad comes from the comedy world, but like Chuck is so funny, and he's so much faster than me.
I don't think I'm faster than you.
Because
you always say this.
Because I filter things like, is this going to hurt somebody's feelings? And I'm so concerned about being liked that I'm like, I shouldn't say that.
You know what's funny?
And Chuck has less.
You know
of a
what?
filter.
He does have that filter, and I think it works way less than mine.
Yeah.
Because you've gotten in trouble for like hurting people's feelings and upsetting people way more than I have.
Different feelings got upset.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
In terms of like funny jokes that I've said.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I don't want to go into this.
No, go into it.
No.
Do it with fake names and fake scenarios. Come on, talk about it. Come on.
At one of our live podcasts.
Yeah. I don't remember this at all.
We showed just pornography. And there's a contextual.
I love the way you fucking said it. You were trying to soften it, and you just had to drop it.
There's the contextual reason that this was shown.
Oh, you cannot. You are okay. We got to obviously talk about this a little bit now.
Yes.
All right. Here's the deal.
Do we have to, or do we want to just leave it?
No. We're talking about this. So years ago, as a friendly prank, as everyone has done, I paid a porn star to film a script that I wrote about Brad. To film two porn stars to film a pornography that I wrote.
Yes, film a pornography.
Yeah, and
industry term there.
And it was like 9 minutes long, and let's call it 4.5 minutes of porn stuff. You know what I'm talking about, and 4.5 minutes of like jokes and dialogue. And that was just a little Christmas prank that I thought it was funny, and Brad didn't love it, didn't take it the right way, didn't take it the way it was intended.
That's how communication works.
Well, there was I should say 11 of us were in on this. I was the one that wrote it, and I was the one that tracked down this young starlet, elderly starlet.
There you go.
And it was funny, and then Brad didn't like it. We didn't talk for a couple days, 2 days, and then I said, "Come on, let's talk about this."
Yeah, while we drove to a Best Buy, like
in a snowstorm,
super far away to like return a Donkey Kong game or some weird thing like that. And so we're in this car, and we have to have the discussion because there's no escaping it, there's no avoiding it, and
we hashed it out. And I think that this is my takeaway. And tell me if you agree with this. My first takeaway was this: however I feel, however Brad feels, this is over Brad's line, and this is not going to happen again. Right? I'm not going to do another prank on him like this, regardless of whatever comes out of that conversation. You know what I mean? Even if Brad is like, "Oh, I understand. Maybe I took it the wrong way." So then we talked. Then I told Brad that up front. We had this big talk. He explained that he took it a certain way, that it was making fun of him in this way, that I think was not part of the intention. And he kind of realized that during it. And he had some like anti-porn feelings that we didn't know about, that he's like, "Oh, didn't you know I felt this way?" And we're like, "No, I remember that." And so we're like, okay, it's buried for years. Then I said,
it wasn't. It was buried for months because for my birthday the next year, there was a big joke.
all right. We're not going to get into this. So anyway, it was the actual content of the video was buried for years. We never, we alluded to it in other things. We drew something where we alluded to the fact that you got mad at it. Yeah. But the actual film was buried. So then for our 300th episode, I was like, what if we brought the porn back? And I'm like, we tell the story on stage. I'm like, what if I censor it? So that instead of showing, XXX pornography, what'd I say? No genitals and no anuses, right? Is that the rule we made up?
We didn't make up a rule.
We did. We made an agreement. Yeah. And so I said, I'll block out, with my editing software, I'll block it out. But I guess what I didn't realize, and I'm sure you're in the same boat as me, so don't pretend you weren't, is that like, even when you censor it, it's almost the same. It's almost like you didn't censor it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it was still incredibly obscene.
Don't you find that to be strange though? That you censor it and it's still like,
I agree.
It was weird. So, because if you watch, it's weird. I guess if you watch like a rated R movie on TV, and let's say there's a girl and she's topless, but they crop in, and so you don't see like her nipples, it does feel different. It does feel like way less rated R.
Right.
But with porn, when you do that, it's not. For some reason, it doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't censor it as much. So we did it live. We showed this censored porn. No genitals, no anuses. I blocked it out. Kept my agreement 100%.
Good.
And people were upset. However, we advertised it as we were showing an 18-plus video for fucking 4 weeks before this, everywhere. On the flyer, 18-plus video at the end. All these different things everywhere. And then people saw it, and they weren't psyched about it. However, I think we were as clear as possible about what was going to be shown.
I tend to agree, but I got the negative feedback.
I know.
And Chuck did not.
I will say, and this is not, I'm not attacking you.
Right.
I think that you might have actually, like, I'll put it this way. If I go to a random scumbag that lives down the street in a homeless fucking box, I don't know, he's scruffy, and I'm like, hey, come to this show, it's going to be nuts. And you go to like a porn survivors group, and you're like, hey, come to our show. Like, I think that you did something wrong and I didn't.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I think you're like fictionalizing the situation.
Well, I mean, I think that you told people that you knew would be upset about it to come directly. But I didn't tell those people.
You know, I also didn't see the censored version and didn't realize how obscene it would be.
It's funny because, like, that's kind of how I feel too. Because, like, what I really did was, like, I took the porn and, I put up these big black boxes. And when I went to go censor it, it was, like, too difficult to really censor. So I was like, you know what? Instead of having these black boxes over the genitals and anuses, I'm just going to have a huge black box over, like, this whole part of the screen. I'm like, that'll make it even less offensive. There's even less, you know what I mean? It's like even more of them it was honestly almost like these people were covered, like, from the waist down for the entire thing. It wasn't like just like censored. It was like a huge thing that censored most of the screen.
Yeah.
And I guess I just didn't, until we were dealing with it on stage for 5 minutes of the porn, and like, it's just the sounds and the slapping and the gut, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't realize it was going to be so offensive. Anyway,
yes.
To get through it, I don't think that counts the same as you. First of all, I think that me and you are at least equally responsible for the porn. I even think that you invited people directly that were the ones that were offended.
Right.
And I didn't.
That would be the case if also people that you invited didn't talk to me about it, or people that we like mutual friends of ours talked to me about it.
I think it was majority.
The point is,
I think the majority of it was people from your end.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
And so that's put aside. The other thing is, if we do this together and we're like, we agree on this, no anuses, no genitals, we display it. Yeah. That's not the same as me or you making an individual comment to someone and that person being upset.
Right.
That's what you said.
Okay. Sorry. The point is, on Thursday, June 21st, there will
There'll be
not
little to no porn.
Now, some of my dinosaurs may resemble genitals
or anuses.
or
There could be some
anuses.
phallic.
Yeah.
When it comes to Dilophosaurus, anus.
Phallic or yonic, either one.
Yeah. Anyway, so I do think that you, in our history, have said things to people directly that upset them more than I have.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so weird. What was the taco story? Oh, man, I don't know. There's a lot of them.
I
I
just
don't
like
know
how
the
this
title.
conversation evolved to which one was quicker, has a quicker wit, and then it leads to a
We had a
pornographic.
fight over whose fault it was that people were upset by the porn we showed. By the way, so just to conclude, because I know this is not, it's not, the porn is not going to end up anywhere, so I have to tell this part of the story because it's so fucking funny. I was like, Brad, if you let me show the porn, this is what we did live. If you let me show the porn, I'll do whatever you want as a response. And he's like, I want you to make an educational math video. And so what I did was I re-edited the porn to have like all these math questions tied into the actual stuff that happened. So as soon as we ended it showing it, we just showed it again with the math.
It was great. It was great.
If the cleverness on that was like at 100, so we did that, which is amazing. So the porn prank in the first place, that may be one of the best pranks that anyone's ever done. Second, the build of the math video, poof, that's I want to kiss my fingers. Then, to say like voila or whatever it is.
Yeah. Bellissima.
Then the end of the fucking thing. This is amazing. So we had this big room at FET, a lot of people in there, all these chairs, obviously, and it was me and my buddy Lou, who's friends with us, and Brad.
They did the math presentation.
And I'm like, and so we showed the porn video, we showed the math thing, and then I'm like, Brad, here's the final copy of the porn. It's this DVD. I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to destroy it here on stage. Lou made this copy, and you're going to get to finally destroy it. And Brad, and everyone's like clapping, and Brad takes the DVD and he cracks it in half. And then Lou goes, and I was like, Brad, this is what happened. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess up the story, but I go, Brad, reach under his chair, and it was taped there. I was like, all right, Lou, burn this copy and tape it under your chair. You're going to break it. So he breaks it. And we're like, thank you, everybody. And Lou's like, hold on. He's like, you just wanted me to tape a copy of it under Brad's chair? And everyone slowly realizes it and reaches under their chair. And everyone had the DVD. Is that amazing?
That's fantastic.
It was seriously, and we're like, oh my god, we're like, all right, see you guys later, and we ran off stage, and we're wearing lab coats because of the math thing.
So weird.
So the footage of people's gasps and you on stage all upset is so fucking funny. Yeah. Oh my god, the footage, it's. I gotta say, I don't know, with those 3 levels of pranking, I don't know if anything has ever come close to that live in terms of a live prank.
That was great.
Oh man, that was a great ending. But you could take that and you could apply it to something else.
Right.
We gotta keep that in our hat and do it again somehow. Man, you want to hear another live prank we did?
We can, because what I was going to go into is what was your favorite, or like of all the different shows you've done, what has been your favorite bit or?
How about this? We had a bit that we thought was so good that we sent into the Impractical Jokers, and they invited us to submit to write for their current season. How about that?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So, all right. So a couple, we've done one of the pranks that I've invented is, and I do feel like I invented this.
Yeah.
So people can, I'm sure. I will say this. I'm sure other people have done some version of this, but I really took this out of my own head. One of the things that I realized you could do is you can get anyone's address in the whole country, just random people if you want, from white pages, and you can get different things made from like staples, like a Christmas card or whatever. So you could use those Christmas cards or whatever to send to people that you know, or you could make a Christmas card of, say, your friend Brad holding up a Christmas cookie. It says, Merry Christmas, Brad, and send that Christmas card to random people across the country with specific messages that are sometimes alarming, sometimes disturbing. And so for Christmas one year, I did that, and I took 100 random addresses, and they got Christmas cards from Brad, with example, a letter that says, Like, let's say we found a guy named Dave. I was going to say Dave Thomas, but that's the founder of Wendy's.
That's okay.
May he rest in peace.
Dave Thomas in Kentucky, let's say. And he got a postcard from Brad that says, "Dear Dave, so glad I finally found your address. I'm shipping the cat. It'll be there tomorrow. Remember, it needs the medicine at its right time. I'm so glad you're taking on this huge responsibility." And no return address, but email address right back. So I've done this prank, a couple different versions. And what you do is we have the postcards you wrote, which are funny. Then you have the postcards you wrote that then got responses in an email, and then you have an email back and forth with the person, and you press it further, and that's funny. But the best one we ever did to date is we had our old buddy Maxud. Eric Maxud was the lead guitarist of Senior Discount. Don't make me puke. And and we always made fun of this fictional grandmother that he had named Noni Maxud. He made her up. He really has a grandmother named Nana Maxud, and the idea was Nana Maxud was very nice and grandmotherly, and Noni Maxud was like a dirty old racist slut.
Yeah, it was like Goofus and Gallant.
Exactly, like Goofus and Gallant.
You know.
Both sides, both grandmothers be like,
Nana Maxud. What is one of the roast jokes you wrote?
Nana Maxud gives 10% of her income to the church. Noni Maxud gives 10% of her income to church, her New Bedford pimp.
Right?
That's fantastic.
Right?
That's fantastic.
So we always made fun of this character, Noni Maxud, that is completely fictional. So one day,
by the way, he got super angry with us every
hated
time we
it.
did. Even though we acknowledged Noni is fictional, there is no Noni Maxud.
There's no Noni. It's not a joke. Yeah. So I made these fake funeral invitations for Noni Maxud's funeral. Got 100 random addresses, as I do, and Brad and I and my girlfriend Gina wrote out these funeral invitations, and we sent them out across the country. We actually addressed them to the Fox L Funeral Home, which was actually the Foxy Lady Strip Club in Providence. That was the address. And we were very careful. We said, hey, like, it's a small service. You have to RSVP at this email address if you want to come, so that we wouldn't run the risk of people actually trying to show up or anything. So we sent these out. And Maxud had no idea. So on stage at one of our shows, we called him up at one of our live podcasts, and we read them out, and he had no idea. And so he's dealing with all of it live. Topper, start reading all the people that wrote back, and the kind of pressing on the prank on those people and making it go further. Topper on that, one of his favorite bands is the band Bowling for Soup. Mm-hmm. Reached out to Bowling for Soup, talked to Jarrett, the lead singer. I was like, listen, we're going to pretend that you got one of these, and I'm going to address it from Eric Maxud. And I wrote, like, hey, you guys, you're my favorite band. If you come to my grandmother's funeral, I'll forget all about my stupid grandma, blah, blah. He sent in a video of himself being like, listen, Eric, I got your message. I think this is totally fucked up. Me and all the guys looked you up on Facebook, and you look like a douchebag. And so Maxud is dealing with this live in front of an audience, seeing this screen of one of his heroes like berating him. He's like, "This is fucked up," And Jarrett keeps coming at him. It was so fucking funny. Like Maxud was basically a thermometer that was like rising the whole time with anger.
It looked like a cartoon.
He was so mad,
almost to the point of steam coming out of
his
it.
Yes, okay. He was so mad. And finally, at the end, Jarrett's like, "And I just want to let you know, this was all a prank, and I was in on this, and blah, blah." And, we relieved the tension. But Maxud was mad. But when I watched the footage back and I was listening to the stuff that we wrote, I was like, man, this level of turning this prank into this thing, and this, the amount of cleverness that went into it, I was like, I think this is really good. Let's send this into the Impractical Jokers. I think it's really similar to like how they write. And we made this pitch video. It was like 4.5 minutes of Brad and I explaining ourselves, and 4.5 minutes of this prank. We sent it in cold. We didn't know anybody. One of the main writers there is Casey Jost. He saw it. We never met him before. We didn't know him. And he's like, oh, this is super funny. I want to invite you guys to submit to write for this season. And we didn't get the job, but we're still in contact with the head writer, James McCarthy. We've become friends with Casey Jost. I just hung out with him in Providence last week from this situation, and we're going to work more with him. And we're going to submit to write again this season. But that's kind of one of my favorite ones, because I feel like it was like the most well-rounded, holy shit live moment, which I think is what I'd like to create.
I think one of my favorite segments was at the Christmas show.
Hold on, let's let him comment on it.
No, it's fine. No, well, hold on. I'm going to put a pin in
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna go to this.
it. Yeah,
I want to talk about the creativity aspect of that because that's absolutely brilliant. Like, the way that you guys, your minds think. It's like when you said, I find like the addresses in the white pages kind of reminds me of when you were in school and you would tie a note to a balloon and you let it fly out.
Yep.
And then whoever found it would write back to you. That's that's the kind of like the current version of doing that. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. And the fact that you could turn that into like a prank or a sketch is that's great.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
We
brilliant.
and we like Brad and me, we basically split them down the middle, and I think Gina wrote 10, my girlfriend. But we killed it just back and forth. I was so proud of everything we came up with.
It was a lot of fun.
Man, Coatsworth Hamilton. Yeah. Then, first of all, you look for the funniest names, first of all. So you wrote one to Coatsworth Hamilton. Which one was that?
I think it was about being Southern, right?
Oh, man, it was so funny. But, they were so funny. I'm so proud of them. One of my favorite ones was I wrote to one guy. His name was Leonardo. And I wrote Leo. I was like... And so the front is the funeral invitation for Noni Maxud. And I wrote, Leo, it was the foot soldiers. I know it was. Shredder has returned from RAF. And then I waited a few days. And then I wrote him another one. And it said, tonight I dine on Noni soup. And it said, from Shredder. Wait a minute. Topper that only I think is funny. Wait a few days, said another one. It says, buzz, buzz, from Baxter Stockman. Remember me? I was the fly one. I was and like, I know that guy doesn't get it, but that's so funny.
That's fantastic.
Right? And what's great is like, even if that person doesn't get it, that joke now being displayed in front of an audience, they get so much enjoyment out of that. Even if that guy got it and was like, oh, what are these? Whatever.
Yeah.
Someone loves that. Someone gets to see that. And the idea that prank is out there is just so funny. Yeah, you're pulling up one or two?
I'm scrolling through, yeah.
Yeah, Coatsworth Hamilton was one of the best. There was actually a guy who...
Here we go. To Coatsworth Hamilton. Noni said she's going to, quote, haunt the shit out of you until you admit you think Limp Bizkit had some good songs. You know how she gets. I think her last words were, I did it all for the nookie. No joke. I had hoped she'd tell me she'd loved me.
Final one, I'll tell you.
It's fantastic.
This is one of my favorite ones. Oh God, did I just lose it? No, I'm gonna get it back somehow.
We need to play the Jeopardy theme right now.
Yeah, man, what was it?
While you're thinking of that, I'll turn to you. Like, so now, do you guys bounce like these notes off each other, or do you just trust each other and just like, hey?
I think with this, it's just the volume is so high since we're writing 100 that you can fuck up. If we're doing like a live show and we're like, oh, we're going to be on stage for 5 minutes and we have to get this across in 5 minutes, then we sit down and we hammer it out.
Oh, yeah.
We shave out lines. We make everything count. But if we're writing 100 postcards, it's kind of like, yeah, let your freak flag fly. Yeah. That's how I think of it. Man, what was the... Damn, I had such a good one I was going to read. I was going to think of. Coatsworth Hamilton. Oh, yeah, okay, here's what it was. So we make a fake email address to be tied to this, which was nonifuneralrcp.com. We sent one out to some kid, right? And there's no information on it. There's no return address. He wrote back, and he was like, hey, that's really interesting. I was thinking about going to Providence to see my favorite band's senior discount really soon. And so he was like letting us know
he was
that he figured it out.
He knew who it was coming from.
Yes. And I was like, and his name was Tyler Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And I wrote him back, and I was like, how the fuck did you, how could you possibly have figured this out?
Part of your response to one of Tyler's responses was, Noni did have a final request for you. She said that if you called your work and said, I quit, and then not go in for a week, that would be super funny. You know how she loved pulling boners, a.k.a. jokes.
A.k.a. jokes. I was like, how did you figure us out, you know? And he said, if you explain to me why you sent me this postcard, then I will tell you how I unlocked the mystery of Noni. And he went through this whole thing where he found out where our Gmail address was from, and he put together Providence, and he started searching for the email address that was connected to the Noni one, and he found some sort of thing. But it was such a cool thing, you know, on top of the pranking. I'm sorry.
That's interesting.
Right? It's so funny. So funny.
And you were talking about your favorite.
Yes.
At the Christmas show,
yes.
And this was more about us writing. We wanted to have our pal Ray Harrington, the Living Fish Fillet, on stage with us. And we decided to do a retelling of the Christmas Carol, which
this is amazing.
Chuck has wanted to do for years, and I'm like, Chuck, it won't work.
And in this case, a retelling for this, because we're using the same terminology for the Jurassic Park thing. In this, it was really the same thing as like a Muppets Christmas Carol or Mickey's Christmas Carol. We just take the classic story and we just put our own spin on it, rewrite the whole story. So in other words, we walked into this.
Right.
We had a Christmas show planned. No one knew what it meant. And so let's say it's probably 9:10. We know the show's going to end around 9:30. We go on stage for the final segment. I'm just setting the stage for this.
Thank you.
No one knows what our final segment's going to be. Could it be a prank? Could it be like whatever? That's what we do normally live. And this is what happened.
And all right, so we called Ray up, and
Ray had no idea. Ray had no idea what we're doing.
So, we're like, we've rewritten Charles Dickens' classic A Christmas Carol through our own eyes, and playing the part of all the ghosts will be Ray Harrington.
And we just handed him a script.
And we're like, all right. And so, Chuck was the narrator, and Cratchit, I was Scrooge, Ray was all the ghosts. And, Ghost of Christmas Past was like a 90s ghost.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Ghost of Christmas. And then the Ghost of Christmas Future was Ray Harrington, like plugging his own, albums. And
So we just did the whole play of A Christmas Carol on stage, and Ray had no idea. He's probably like the top comedian in the area. Like, he's widely respected by the other comedians. And
we're like, put on this LL Cool J hat.
And so we just did the play in front of the thing. He had no idea. And he killed it. And
oh yeah, he was awesome.
The idea of taking a prank, quote unquote, but making it so good natured and so worthwhile in a fun way. I think the audience was just like, this is so cool and funny. It's such a funny way to kind of play a little joke on this person, and then do our, and then we're just, even if we hadn't had the prank on Ray as part of it, our retelling of A Christmas Carol live was just funny.
I think it really let us show off our writing chops.
Yeah.
And that felt really good to do. And that was one that we really worked on, that one. Over and over, like past the point of exhaustion, where I was like, it was easier for Charles Dickens to write the original story by candlelight than for us to rewrite it and put in our own jokes.
Oh my God, that was so fun.
That was going to be something I was going to say too, because like when you get to it, as far as writing goes, when you get to that point and you get to see your words that you've thought up or that you've written down, and you those ideas kind of like come to fruition and play out, like that's going to be probably one of the like best feelings in the world, especially if it's getting laughs and it's landing like you intended it to, or even better than you did. It's got to be kind of very, very rewarding for you guys.
Oh, it feels great.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, that's when we do these live shows, like we put a lot of effort into them, to the point where some people have said that we are putting too much effort into them. Like with the Christmas show and the Halloween show, we essentially did 4 segments for each one that are between 15 and 20 minutes each, and that's a lot of comedy to produce for a specific thing. So Ray Harrington, who really is like one of the most accomplished comedians in the area, has been like, you guys shouldn't be putting all that into one show. You should be doing a headlining act and maybe do an opening bit that's a little bit smaller. And so that's what we're doing with our Jurassic Park show
on Thursday, June 21st.
That's right. But for our Christmas show, it was just like 4 bits, and it is the best thing ever. And it's funny because it's one of those things where it's like, I wish we could just do a couple shows. I wish we could do Providence, Boston, Hartford, New York, and with all that stuff, if we can get a good crowd in for those places, because I think that the shows are worth it. We hope that like when we write this, like the Christmas Carol thing, that like, we'll be able to display it another place someday, or maybe even do it to somebody else, and use the same script. But yeah, I mean, that was so fun. Like the idea of rewriting that play and then just doing it live in front of all those people with the scripts was crazy fun. That was awesome. That's a highlight for me too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Before we kind of wrap up here, because we're about 50 minutes in, I want to just kind of pick both your brains. Like, where do you, perfect scenario, where do you see you guys moving? I mean, obviously you're talking about you working with, Impractical Jokers. You're forging those different relationships, those working relationships. Where do you guys want to see your talents go? How do you want your careers to grow from this? Where do you see yourself going?
I think both of us have talked about the idea of doing comedy for a living. Mm-hmm. And, we both have day jobs right now. And to be able to get to a point where we can financially support ourselves just with comedy. And I realize, like, it's a competitive field. I get that. But, that's where I'd love to end up. I always say I just want to entertain people, whether that's through comedy or through writing or whatever. But to be able to do that full time would be, the goal for me.
Yeah, I think that basically it's, if we could get some sort of stability writing comedy, like let's say it would be writing for like Impractical Jokers, that would give us a little bit more leeway in terms of doing live podcasts or live comedy shows or whatever version of that kind of stuff we come up with. And being able to do that in bigger places, and being able to do that in conjunction with other people that are also doing similar stuff and not having everything just kind of on our backs. Because right now, if we want to do something like that, it's going to be us headlining, us pulling in everybody, us really having to work for it. And I'd love if someone trusted us enough that was like established, would put us on shows to say, hey, you guys think that you guys do some funny shit, right? Here's a crowd. Let's see what happens, and be able to bring all these different types of really alternative comedy to the stage in that way. And obviously, I'd love to write. Like if there was some opportunity where we got to write a movie or write a TV series, like we'd love to go down that path too. We have a lot of ideas. One of them's called Time Crimers.
Trademark Chuck and Brad.
Yep.
All right, you heard it here.
Let's try. Yeah.
We're locking that in.
Yep.
That's copywritten.
Yep.
Don't try to rip off that idea.
Nope. Time Crimers.
Ours pending.
Yep. That's right.
Well, excellent. So let's plug your stuff one more time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your website. Let's talk about your show. Let's talk about Thursday, June 21st.
So Thursday, June 21st, Chuck and Brad will be headlining the Comedy Connection in East Providence with our own reimagining of Jurassic Park. We're going to open the show and do some fun stuff up front. Then we have Andrew Williams, Penny Oswin, Rob Green, and Ray Harrington doing stand-up. And then we're going to close the show with our big reimagining of Jurassic Park, which you're sure to love. If you like Jurassic Park, classic cinema, comedy, experimental live shows, come out Thursday, June 21st, the Comedy Connection for Chuck and Brad reimagine Jurassic Park.
You can check out our podcast weekly at chuckandbradpodcast.com.
And all the information for the event is also at chuckandbradpodcast.com.
Absolutely. Along with a handy search feature. If you're like, I wonder what they thought about the original Jurassic World, you can search Jurassic World and find the episode where we talk about it.
Yeah, that's right.
The episodes that we talk
the
about.
many episodes where we talked about it.
Social media, Chuck is at Discount Chuck. I am at Brad Rohr. That's BradRohrer on both Twitter and Instagram. And the podcast is on Facebook, facebook.com. Yeah.
It's Facebook.
We're getting all the way till the end.
I know. I normally Chuck does the Facebook one.
Facebook.com/Chuck and Brad podcast.
Oh, it's not Facebook.com.
Yeah, I like that.
That's in Canada. It's .ca.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being on this episode.
Hey, man, thank you.
You know what? I'm going to be buying tickets, so
I'd love to have you there,
we're
man.
going to go check this out. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure. You guys were hilarious.
Thank you.
Like, I wish nothing but the best for you. Like, I just from these stories, I know that both of you guys, with your talent and your creativity, you have nowhere to go but up, and your stars will continue to rise. And
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
It's fantastic. And go check them out Thursday, June 21st.
There you go. Thank
you guys for being on.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.